Foreign policy received a breath of fresh air soon after Tun Razak became Malaysia's second Prime Minister. Prior to that, Tunku Abdul Razak followed a policy that was pro-West and pro-American in the big power rivalry, especially between Russia and the People's Republic of China. This pro-Western policy might have been due to the fact that Tunku had agreed to this as a condition for independence from the British, which saw in a pro-Western and anti-communist government a safeguard for British interests in this country. This was evident in Malaysia's participation in the Commonwealth Organization, whose members were comprised of former British colonies, and ASEAN, which comprised of non-communist Southeast Asian countries. The anti-communist stance was also evident in Malaysia's continued struggle against the Communist Party of Malaya and in the signing of defense pacts with Britain, Australia and New Zealand. As such, even before becoming Prime Minister, Tun Razak led delegations to several East African countries and in 1966 visited the United States. In August 1966, he attended the Foreign Ministers' Conference in Bangkok and visited Burma on 22nd September that same year. The pro-Western and anti-communist foreign policy was a stumbling block in Malaysia's international relations. China was always a threat as she supported communist insurgents throughout Southeast Asia. The situation worsened when the United States abandoned Indochina and the subcontinent was opened to the influence of the Soviet Union. The situation became more delicate between 1963 and 1965 when Indonesia, whose leaders began to be influenced by communist elements, declared confrontation against Malaysia. Indonesia felt that Malaysia, formed in 1963, was an offshoot of new colonialistic policies practiced by the British. Political animosity also broke out with the Philippines, which claimed Sabah as its territory. At the same time, the Malaysian economy, which was too dependent on agricultural products, especially rubber and tin, was further squeezed as the international market controlled by the United States and Europe sought new markets for their products. In facing all these challenges, soon after becoming Prime Minister, Tun Razak embarked on a drastic policy of redefining Malaysia's foreign policy. At the United Nations General Assembly in New York in 1971, for the first time, he drew the attention of all the delegates to Malaysia's change in foreign policy to one of neutrality. He also suggested that the whole of Southeast Asia should be free of big power intervention and influence. His proposal, together with a change in Malaysia's foreign policy, received strong support from all members of ASEAN. This culminated in the declaration of the region as a zone of peace, freedom and neutrality, or ZOPFAN, on 27 November 1971 in Kuala Lumpur. This came to be known as the Kuala Lumpur Declaration. ZOPFAN's primary objective was to transform Southeast Asia into a zone of peace, neutrality and free from big power conflict, as well as free from taking sides in that conflict. The region should also be free from the threat of nuclear weapons. The big powers should also recognize and respect Southeast Asia's neutrality. Tun Razak pursued these strategic goals through diplomacy, as he felt that this approach was most appropriate, as it was in the spirit of regional cooperation. In his numerous official and non-official visits, he signed agreements of cooperation with many countries except Israel and South Africa to promote his idea. Integration and cooperation among members of ASEAN were further strengthened through social and cultural cooperation. According to Tun Razak, international support for any issue would be more forthcoming when made collectively with ASEAN members. The protest against the Vietnamese invasion of Cambodia and the refugee problem were examples of how such collective efforts brought results. Similarly, economic cooperation between members of ASEAN, including tariff and GSP facilities, showed how such a decision-making process was able to promote regional integration. In his era, Malaysia joined the non-aligned movement. This helped Malaysia forge diplomatic relations with many democratic as well as communist governments, including Russia. Through his effort, Malaysia gained international recognition and agreement on Asian Neutral Stand and ZOPFAN. Malaysia's relations with China were started by the sending of a trade delegation to Peking in May 1971. Stemming from that delegation, China recognized Malaysia's sovereignty and promised not to interfere in Malaysia's internal affairs. In return, Malaysia voted in favor of a resolution to give China a seat in the United Nations. Diplomatic relations between the two countries was further enhanced by Tun Razak's historical visit to China in May 1974. Tun Razak also forged stronger ties with third world countries, especially Afro-Asian and Islamic countries. His keen interest in the peace of these countries was evident by his attending the Afro-Asian Conference in September 1973 in North Africa. He proposed that each member country join forces to form a strong force so that resources available to them could be utilized efficiently and economic opportunity could be fairly distributed among their people. On the 23rd of March 1970, he led the Malaysian delegation to the first Islamic Foreign Ministers Conference in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. In that conference, Malaysia was given the honor to nominate Tunku Abdul Rahman as the first Secretary General of the new Organization of Islamic Countries. Tun Razak also declared open a conference that launched the International Islamic News Agency or IINA in Kuala Lumpur on 16th August 1972. On the 22nd of February 1974, he led the Malaysian delegation to the Organization of Islamic Countries Summit in Lahore, Pakistan, which was followed by his official visits to Qatar, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. Diplomatic relations with non-Islamic countries were also enhanced by his visits to North Korea, Vietnam, Burma, Japan and Canada. In recognition of his effort in fostering international relations, Tun Razak was conferred many international awards and honors, including a First Class Order of the Rising Sun, Japan 1974,